Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joy Holmes, and welcome to this edition of a special report from Vanguard News. Today, we're going to be covering climate change stories, so we're going to bring out our guests one by one, and our first guest today is Lauren Hunter. Hello, Lauren.
Hey, Joy.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I see that you did a story on hunting
Yes,
and
ma'am.
how climate change is kind of affecting hunters and their usual sport. So how does climate change really affect them?
So out of the hunters that I interviewed, there were two that said that they had seen some changes over the last few years, and there was one that said that he hadn't seen any changes. And so for those who said that they had seen some changes, they said that really it just more so affected the wildlife. So for example, they were saying that it gets colder later than it used to, and so that kind of affects how the deer move. And so therefore it makes it a little bit more difficult to hunt because the deer don't want to move as much.
Yeah, and actually I have noticed this season a little less deer because I live on kind of a wooded street, so I see them all the time, and I really haven't seen that many this year. So I think there could be some kind of truth behind that. But for the guy that said that climate change isn't really the cause of the lack of deer, I know he mentioned that it was predators. Did he speak about what kind of predators, he thinks that they might be?
So he did not specifically speak about any specific predators. However, for those who truly do hunt and know more about it, definitely coyotes are a big effect on deer. They hunt deer and kill them. And then also there are just other different animals like dogs, cats, maybe even a few like mountain lions that can definitely kill the deer and affect them as well.
Okay. So what parts of North Georgia are these people hunting?
So mainly in like Cleveland, that area, White County, some even in like Madison County. That's mainly the northeast part of Georgia is where they're hunting.
Okay, great. Well, let's take a look at Lauren's story.
Fall has arrived here in North Georgia, and with that comes the beginning of deer season. I'm Lauren Hunter reporting for Vanguard News, and over the last couple of weeks I've been talking to some local hunters to see whether or not recent climate changes have affected their seasons. Deer season begins in Georgia around the beginning of October and lasts until New Year's Day. For many North Georgians, hunting is a way of life. Take, for instance, Ronnie Darracott, a Buford native who has been hunting most of his life. Hunters like Darracott have seen changes in the climate over the last few years.
It seems like it's more warmer weather than it used to be. It seemed like when it turned colder, it stayed cold. Of course, the season opens up different than what it used to be. It used to open up in November, now it opens in October, and then you get your bow season, which it opens up early September. And I guess that's the only difference that I've seen in the change. I've been hunting there right at 40 years, 45 years exact, and that's the main thing I've seen. Is the weather seems like it's not as cold as it used to be.
Cleveland native Brian Satterfield is another local hunter who has been exploring the region for many years. However, unlike Darracott, Satterfield says that he has not seen any changes in the climate.
I haven't. It's about the same as it was when I was just a kid. It seems like the deer may have changed their habit, but they don't have anything to do with the climate. They've changed because of predation on them.
Both of these men believe that changes in the wildlife are more results of predators or land changes than climate changes.
Habitat. A lot of it's got to be the habitat, and then the growth of farming is not out there like it used to be, especially around in this area. And I don't know which predators could be predators. Hawks, owls, cats, and all. They work on the small game as well.
I believe that they've changed the does and the bucks, the cycle, that the breeding cycle they go through has changed, but I believe it's because of predation, not climate. We have cycles of wet weather in the fall, and then we have cycles of drought in the fall. Sometimes we have mild summer, sometimes we have hot. It's been that way all my life.
Then there's Dylan Adams, who, although he doesn't quite have as many years of experience as the other men, has seen some changes in the climate and in the wildlife.
Yes, it tends to get colder in like earlier December, and it used to get colder in like early November, but now it's like warm. When it tends to get colder, they don't like to move as much. Like they just kind of lay down. They don't like to eat.
Adams doesn't really have an opinion on what is causing these changes.
I really don't know, but it's like seasons changing different, getting colder later, but I don't know.
No doubt, whether or not there are climate changes or changes in the wildlife, these men will find a way to adapt and hunt for many years to come. Reporting for Vanguard News, I'm Lauren Hunter.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's been
Of
a pleasure.
course. Thank you,
and we hope
Joy.
to see more of you here on
Yes,
Vanguard
ma'am.
News. Our next reporter, August Lynch, talks to local farmers at the Swanee's Farmers Market to see what changes have affected their farming practices. She also talks to someone that you would not usually think of when you hear of climate change. So let's welcome August. Hi, August.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You have a nice firm handshake too.
Thank you. I'm just so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, it was kind of hard because the farmers that I talked to at the farmers market, they talked to me more about weather, about the fluctuation. Like every year, it's really different. I mean, this past year, it was really hot and it got really wet, so it was just a tough uphill battle for them.
So what exactly did these farmers say about their crops? What specific crops are really getting kind of the rough end of the climate change?
Well, they didn't go into specifics about what crops are doing worse than others, but when it gets cold and they freeze off, then there are other crops that they can plant that will thrive when it freezes. So like I believe beans do really well in freezing temperatures, and also there are different farmers with different practices, so they can do it in tunnels or just indoors, and some do it under shelter versus outside. Then they have the larger crops going on. But something that was really interesting is I took a different turn with talking to a historical geologist, professor here at the UNG campus in Gainesville, and I just wanted to talk to someone with a different perspective of like different layers that farmers could come across. But he actually told me that the ice that formed in the ice caps 20 million years ago, we don't know what gases were going on. So when those melt as the temperatures get warmer, when the ice caps melt, those gases are actually being released into the atmosphere. So I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And he goes into a lot more of specifics about, we can even see details of the oxygen and hydrogen isotopes about when the US and the Soviet Union did nuclear testing, stuff like that. That can show up in ice.
Right.
So I learned a lot doing this story. It was really challenging, but it was really fun at the same time. I don't know if that...
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of really great information in your story.
Yeah.
So I look forward to watching that. So you speak about these challenges that you've had. So what kind of challenges did you face?
Well, some people get a little funny when you talk about climate change. They're like, oh, because, I don't know, just throwing those words out, they get a little defensive. But then again, they were just like, well, I mean, every year is different. It's not like you can't judge 5 years down the road what it's going to be like, but we can at least guess the temperatures are going to eventually, yes, you're going to get rise. But I don't know, climate, it's dynamic, so the temperatures are always going to change every so, but we can, and then we don't know if it's going to be an uptick in the cycle, if it's going to get lower, so.
Yeah.
So they were just kind of like, we're farmers, it's kind of a gamble. We can only do so much about like what's at the immediate season that they have on their hands.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, and Georgia weather is already so unpredictable.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see where it kind of leads to in the future.
Georgia is a different case, especially because in North Georgia, there's the rockier terrain, different stuff grows up there, and they deal with more surface water. That's what I learned. And then South Georgia, they're blessed with groundwater,
Right.
so they can use that to their advantage. So different crops in South Georgia versus North Georgia. But I mean, it was definitely interesting to see, because I'm not a farmer, but it's cool to see that kind of world, what they have to be up against.
Okay, so I know not to go to you when I want fresh vegetables.
No, I won't have any.
Thank you, August. Let's take a look at August's video and let's see what these farmers are facing with climate change.
As occupants on the home we call planet Earth, it's important to be mindful about certain changes in the weather being recorded, even if they're gradual or they're sudden. We walk outside and see these changes every day, but what about the people whose jobs and lifestyles rely on the stability of the weather? Farmers, whether they grow crops to sell locally or commercially, have to depend on climate, which is measured in decades or longer periods of time in determining what the weather will bring. I talked to a lot of farmers at their first winter farmers market of the season, and they talked me through the annual fluctuations they face while growing their specialty crops.
Pumpkins, yes. Root vegetables, beets and carrots grow now as well. When your temperatures, the soil cool down and the air temperature cools down, a lot of greens will grow a lot better, and you'll kind of shift out of those summer crops like squash and tomatoes and peppers, and you'll move into your greens and your root vegetables and then your winter squashes.
You know, the last 3 years that the falls have been quite warm, definitely above average, September especially, and even October. So that's affected the berries in the fall. They like this cooler temperature, which is right now.
Science proves that climate is heating up for now, but climates are dynamic, and the current rise in temperature may just be an uptick in a cycle that will later go down. I talked to UNG's historical geology professor, Wayne Fuller, to present a different perspective of where the farmers are coming from and how Earth has formed through cycles of cooling and warming.
Use the term climate change. Climate change includes global cooling as well as global warming. So there are many, many episodes in the Earth's history that show that global cooling is just as real as global warming. And that's exactly what has to happen if there's going to be growth of glaciers.
Yes, it's climate change, but it's natural climate change. I don't think it's something, I'm sure we contributed to it, but I don't think it's the whole, the pollution and all that.
From a geologist's standpoint, Fuller assures that the Earth has been warming up since the last ice age, which was approximately 10,000 years ago.
And we have been warming up since the retreat of the Wisconsin ice sheet off of North America, and continue to do so, and probably will continue to do so into the future. But I can't tell you how long into the future.
As far as the next 5 years go for what Georgia farmers can expect from weather and climate, Fuller only anticipates that it will just gradually get a little warmer. Fuller also notes that Georgia's soil is very diverse when you look at how different crops grow in South Georgia versus North Georgia.
We're growing the scale we grow at, and we grow so many different kinds of things that there's always something that does better. If one thing's not doing good, there's something else that'll take its place.
So it's kind of, this is a gamble. It really is. I always said I wasn't a gambling person. Well, it made me tell a tale, because this all here is a gamble. Because you don't know if it's going to produce or if it ain't going to produce, and what the weather's going to do.
While the farmers will continue to battle Georgia's fluctuating heat, they help in the green, earth-friendly movements by consuming the crops that grow in their very own backyard and invest in frugal agricultural practices.
Getting to know people that work the farmers market and them recognizing you and knowing what you want, and that's what I like the most about farmers market.
Aaron and Mark Phantom are the sole organizers of the farmers market, and the couple runs their Southern Essential Oils business alongside the farmer vendors.
The almond oil is actually good for inflammation.
Fuller mentions some other solutions people can turn to.
I do have to caution the agricultural community about where they're going for solutions. Politicians aren't going to supply them with any solutions. They need to be in contact with the University of Georgia and its agricultural people up there to make sure they're growing the right crop for the right time and the right crop for the soils that we have here in the state of Georgia.
I'm August Lynch, Vanguard News.
Our reporter, Sarah Underwood, unfortunately is not here to talk about this story, but she covers the average time that leaves are supposed to fall. However, with rising temperatures and a wetter summer, the leaves are falling faster before than they can turn into those famous fall colors we all love. Let's see if this affects the local business Wander North Georgia, known for their outdoor ventures.
Thousands of patrons flock to the North Georgia mountains to watch the leaves change every year. The leaves in North Georgia change first due to the low temperatures. The beautiful fall colors then spread from the top of the state down into the city of Atlanta and beyond. Wander North Georgia is a local business located in downtown Clayton and has brought many people to the area by encouraging followers of the outdoor brand to get outside and to wander North Georgia. Local businesses like shops and restaurants depend on tourist dollars to make a living. Businesses in the Clayton area does experience peak tourism during the summer and fall months, from kayakers to hikers.
Last weekend was peak, and we felt it tremendously, just driving through town, trying to find parking, in the store itself, just throughout. You could tell that people were here to see the leaves.
We have a lot of tourists. We always have. Since '97, I believe that 441 has always been backed up, like Mountain City Way. And in the past 3 years, I've noticed, and obviously the sales are a lot higher here, that there are a lot more tourists, So we just experience a lot of traffic, the businesses are booming, etc. So, it's good for our town.
The leaves this year in North Georgia were beautiful as always, but left a lot of people waiting for the famous hues we know and love. This year, the leaf peak was November 3rd, and later fall colors seem to be the new norm in North Georgia. Since 2015, the leaves have changed color later or have dried off and fallen too quickly for residents and visitors to enjoy them. Charles Offer and his family are from Midway, Georgia, and came to Minnehaha Falls on Lake Burton to experience the beautiful fall colors just in time.
Just driving along the roads and looking at the fall colors in the corridors, you see some amazing color along the highways. Especially 441, the old historic route, it's got some really awesome colors.
There are 3 factors that contribute to leaves changing: sunlight, temperature, and rainfall. High temperatures causes color to appear earlier and disappear faster. It's no surprise that Georgia has been heating up. In fact, Georgia is 2.4 degrees hotter than normal. September 2018 was the hottest September on record since 1956, when the National Weather Services started recording. So why did the leaves still change later? Rainfall, and Georgia has seen a lot of it this year. Georgia is approximately 10 inches over average rainfall for the year. In early summer, lower elevations of Georgia got the worst of flooding. The Chattahoochee overflowed its banks for several days and weeks, and part of the Chattahoochee was even closed to release the access of water from Beaufort Dam. 2018 saw periods of dry and extreme rainfall, all contributing to the late arrival of the fall hues. Although North Georgians are seeing changes in the climate, citizens are still willing to be outdoors and to help Mother Nature by going on cleanup hikes organized by Wander North Georgia.
But we also then organize trips, day hikes. A lot of cleanup hikes is probably our best piece of it. So what we do is we'll establish a day. We've worked with the forest to create a trail group and we head out into the forest with a group of people and lots of trash bags, and we just basically scour an area until we get all the trash out of it. And there's tons and tons. Every time we feel like we've done a great job with 18, 20, 30 bags, you know, coming out of a place.
I'm Sarah Underwood, Vanguard News.
Our next guest is reporter Erica Blanton, and she went to a local Kinsey family farm to see how warmer winters have affected their Christmas tree business. So let's welcome Erica Blanton. Hi, Erica.
Hello.
How are you?
How do you do?
Oh, so good to see you. I love your outfit. You always look so fashionable.
Stop that.
So Erica, tell me a little bit about this story, since, you know, Christmas season is here. So people definitely want to know about what troubles they could face when they're looking for a Christmas tree.
Definitely, and unfortunately there has been some troubles with finding the perfect Christmas tree this year. Mostly because, you know, it is getting warmer, so most Christmas tree customers are kind of being tricked that it's not Christmas just yet. I certainly know that I really know it's Christmas when it starts getting colder outside, and unfortunately it's been a little too warm for that.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic to bring up. I mean, I definitely didn't think about Christmas trees, but I mean, all plants and wildlife are surely being affected by climate change. So maybe we'll be seeing a lot more fake trees this year, but not in my house, because I love real trees.
I love real trees. Those are the way to go. They smell nice.
They do.
And it's fun just going to the farm and picking them out.
It is. I've never cut down my own tree. Can you do that at Kinsey Farm?
Yeah, you actually can.
That's so nice. Yeah. So let's take a look at Erica's story and see what we have to be prepared for come Christmas.
The Kinsey Family Farm is one of the largest tree farms in Hall County, making it one of the first stops for families when it's time to pick a Christmas tree. The farm sits on many acres dedicated to growing all different kinds of trees, including pine, Japanese maples, boxwoods, magnolias, and spruce trees. The farm also has a nursery section where many seedlings grow before being planted or sold. The Kinsey Farm grows more than just trees. It also caters to the flower and shrub lovers. Among the plants, the farm also has animals, including goats and llamas. But more than anything, this time of year, people just want to find and cut the perfect Christmas tree. As being so popular, many have to wonder if warmer winters affect this farm's growing season.
We generally begin each season the weekend before Thanksgiving, so it varies year to year as Thanksgiving moves around, so does the opening day. But yeah, we have found that people really like the Christmas holidays quite a bit, and they're trying to start earlier and earlier every year. And so that has been a great start date for us, and evidently there aren't very many people doing it. So that's been a great strategy for us. Well, at Christmas time, I would say our biggest seller is certainly, as far as trees go, the Fraser fir. They come out of North Carolina up in the high elevations in Virginia, and they have kind of all the best attributes of a Christmas tree, and people love them. Nothing long term, but certainly in the short term, yeah, the winters seem to be coming later and later. So today it's kind of chilly, but last Sunday it was 70 degrees, and we had a lot of shoppers out here in shorts, which would have been outstanding, but we deal with the trees, and so sticky sap and shorts don't go very well. But yeah, the last several years have been seem to have been much warmer with, you know, no real hard facts behind that, but it definitely seems to be coming later and later. More than anything, I would say it encourages people to come out. They're going, man, the weather is great, let's go out to the farm. So in one sense, I would say it's probably affected us in a positive manner.
According to NASA, the planet's average surface temperature has risen about 1.62 degrees Fahrenheit over the past 100 years. 2016 was the warmest year to date. Many problems come from this, including warmer oceans, shrinking ice sheets, less Arctic ice, and extreme weather events.
I'm not a huge fan of artificial trees. I don't necessarily have a problem with them. I certainly understand. A real tree is a little bit more work. However, it brings you, it just kind of makes the whole season more real. When you walk in your house and you're smelling real sap and you're smelling real, tree fragrance, and just to have a real tree, it just sets the tone for the whole season. As opposed to, well, there's my plastic tree over in the corner, which I understand, it's not for everybody.
This is Erica Blanton with Vanguard News.
Students, beware. This next story might burst your beer-drinking bubble. Our last guest for the show is reporter Jake Cantrell. He tells us all about it. Jake, come on out. Hi, Jake.
Hey, Joy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. Thanks for joining us today. So I do like to have a beer every once in a while. So I'm very interested in your story. So how is climate change really affecting beer drinkers?
So when you think of climate change, you don't necessarily think of it affecting your beer intake, but studies have come out to show that the barley industry might be under attack by higher temperatures and drought that could be caused through climate change. So basically there was a study that came out in October that shows that through better practices, if we started now, improving towards better practices of preventing climate change, we could possibly halt to the point to where only 3% of yields of barley would be affected in the future. But the way trends are going, it's going to be more like 17% of all barley yields would come back or would be shrunk, which would basically put a shortage on the beer industry.
So another thing that we have to be mindful of is obviously if there's going to be a shortage, that might jack up the prices.
It's looking like prices could possibly double and there would just be less to go around. An interesting point so I went to speak to a local brewer, and basically an interesting point that they brought out was that creativity in just coming out with craft beers that aren't necessarily barley driven but have other
Bases.
grains, and relying on less barley and more of these other possibilities, just being creative coming out of it.
Well, hopefully it won't put too much of a shortage on the beer, because I feel like you don't want to mess up a good thing. Because like some people don't really like milk stouts or like those weird beers like that. Some people just like good old barley beer. So hopefully it doesn't go too much away. All right, Jake. Well, let's take a look at Jake's story and let's see how we're going to be affected by our beer drinking.
When you hear the words climate change, you may think of the ocean encroaching onto the land, the polar bears whose homes are melting, or just the overall well-being of our planet. But climate change could end up affecting something many hold dear: beer. Research published in October suggests extreme drought and heat could cause substantial decreases in yields of barley, a key ingredient in producing beer. A decrease in barley yields would likely mean an increase in the price of beer. This would enrage consumers, but could also have major implications on local economies. In February, the New York Times reported microbreweries contributed about $68 billion to the national economy in 2016. So what would a barley shortage mean for a local brewery? I talked with Rick Foote, the brewer at Left Nut Brewing in Hall County, to find out.
Well, our cost of materials could increase potentially because there might be shortfalls of barley. There was for a time shortfalls on hops because they weren't planting enough acreage. But they turned that around and they're planting surplus acreage of hops now, so there's no shortage of hops.
And Foote feels that the creativity of the industry to reconsider craft beer could go a long way in managing a shortage.
And beer is brewed with so many different ingredients nowadays. It's not just barley malt, hops, water, yeast. It's any kind of fermentable is fair game.
At the moment, it's full steam ahead for the craft beer industry, but only time will tell what effects climate change could have. I'm Jake Cantrell, Vanguard News.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Vanguard News. I'm Joy Holmes, and we'll see you next time.